Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. We want to ask you a question. What one thing needs to change for you to be able to charge more than you do now?
And if that thing happened and you increased your fees, would you actually be able to find more clients too? Here's a few of our members from our community. Me and Zoe run the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. It's a free Facebook community on Facebook, and we've got over 13,000 members, bookkeepers and accountants from all different backgrounds. Some people are just starting out on their training journey. Some people have just opened up their practices, and some have been in business for a very long time. And in that community, we are asked frequently, how do I raise my prices? And how do I find more clients? And we wondered, was there a simple answer to this?
So we thought we'd do a survey, and we put a survey out to our community a bit on a whim. I'll be honest. We really just wanted to get some ideas about this. And one of the questions that we asked in that survey was, what one thing needs to happen for you to be able to charge more than you do now? We had about 108 responses to that survey, all of the questions that we asked, and we had a lot of free text answers. You know, when you're dealing with that kind of data and you're like, oh, how do we bring this together? So we had a look through the responses that people gave us, and these were some of the things that came out. This is what people were telling us they felt needed to change. So somebody here said, I need clients to understand the value of bookkeeping instead of seeing it as a box-ticking exercise.
Somebody else said, clients need to understand the value of the service. They want as cheap as they can.
This person said, I need my clients to understand my worth.
Another response was, my clients need to value my service.
Somebody here said, I want to see an increase in rates across the board so that the whole average for the industry is higher.
Someone else said, my ability to be able to clearly talk about the value I bring to their business and my own confidence too.
This person said, I need clients to understand how important it is what I'm doing for them, and I need accountants to stop undermining me. So, lots of words there. That was just a handful of them. And we thought, what should we do with this? Let's make a word cloud. And so we put all of the words into a word cloud, and we thought, and I showed my daughter and she was very impressed. And these were some of the words that were coming up. And obviously, clients was a big word there. One of the big ones here actually is confidence. Like, we have conversations all the time with people about, I just need to feel a bit more confident, and then I'll be able to do this. My business will be so much better if I feel more confident. So there's definitely something in that.
I think what I can see here is standing out. Clients need confidence in my services and my value. So when you bring everyone's responses together, that's kind of the message that we were getting.
Yeah, absolutely. Value is a big one, isn't it? And we really picked up from reading through the responses in more detail that what people really needed was for people to see them as valuable. How do you do that, though? How do you tell them that you're valuable? How do you make them see it when they're not even working with you yet? And this is the problem. This is really what we think the crux of the problem is for bookkeepers specifically. I know there are accountants in the room as well. But I think we all struggle with this because we're numbers people, and we know what we do, and we do what we do really well. But do we talk about it so much? Maybe not. What we think the real problem is that your clients, as a baseline, don't even know you're there. Like, a lot of the time, we're not even saying, hey, I do this thing, let alone saying I do this thing and it's really valuable. So there's a baseline that's missing here, just in terms of general visibility of the industry.
So, who here in the room, put your hand up if you have a mobile phone on you today. Raise your hand, you've got a mobile phone. Keep your hands raised. Keep your hands raised if you've posted on social media today. Oh,
guys.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, that is really interesting. I actually thought more of you would still have your hands up. One of the things that I really think about being at an event like this is that you guys, although it seems massive and huge and there are like thousands of people here, you guys are like the top few percent of the whole industry making time for personal development, business development, seeing what's new. A lot of people are just focused on what they do day to day. So, we're the top people here in this industry. So you're doing these things and you're pushing these boundaries, and there's even a smaller segment of you guys who are out there saying, hey, I'm here and I'm doing this thing. And we've got to remember there's such an opportunity while you're here. You'll see there are hashtags and QR codes, and all of the software companies will have a handle, and there'll be a way for you to interact. We really need to do that more. So we wanted to dive into this a little bit further with the bookkeepers and accountants who responded to our survey. So one of the questions that we asked them was, how frequently do you post about your business on social media? And when we had that data and when we could see how frequently people were posting, we thought, well, hang on a minute, let's see how the comments from people who had responded to what they needed to change and who were telling us, I need people to see me as more valuable, they need to understand my worth. We wanted to understand how much those people were posting on social media to see if there was a correlation here. And so the person who said to us, I need my clients to understand the value of bookkeeping instead of seeing it as a box ticking exercise. When we asked how frequently are you showing up on social media, they said, well, just posting a few times a month.
The person that said clients need to understand the value of the service they want as cheap as they can. Their response to how frequently are you posting? I rarely post.
And this person who said, I need clients to understand my worth, said, I never post. So the quotes that you saw earlier in the presentation, when we looked through those and looked through the list, what we found was that at best, people were posting on social media a few times a month. And generally, people were posting never or rarely.
And then obviously we had to make a pie chart because we're bookkeepers. And so as you can see here that like over half rarely or never posted. We had a small selection of a few times a month. I mean, every day was 7.5%, very small selection of every single day. And a few times a week was 22.5%. But the majority was either a few times a month or less.
Can we poll in this room?
Yeah,
I do that. Out of interest, who posts every day on social media? Could you raise your hand if you do?
Or was that?
Woo! And how about who rarely or never posts on social media? Okay, that's fine. We can change from today. It's all good. We're not saying you have to become a social media influencer. That isn't what this is about. What we're saying is that you need to be more visible and telling people that you're here. We're not even saying that social media is the answer necessarily. It's just something that everyone has the ability to do.
And it's free. This is the thing, isn't it? I know in the past, when I started out in business 20 years ago, it was all about yellow pages and having a name that began with an A so that you was at the front of the list. And, it was radio adverts or like public putting out letters and leaflets. Social media is free. So everybody can do it. It doesn't mean everyone should, doesn't mean everyone wants to, but that's why we're talking about it today, because everyone does have the opportunity to use social media.
Yeah, I think there's a way, isn't there? Whoever your client base is, there'll be a way to find that fit. It's just discovering when you understand who your client is and where they are and where they expect to hear from somebody like you. What do you do to make sure that you're front of mind for those people?
So we think, but we wanted to really test it out, if you are more visible, then you can reach more clients, more people know about you, you can have more conversations, you can reach more prospects, have more leads. And then if you take on more clients and you're busy, then you become, a commodity that people want to have. So then actually you can raise your fees as well. So we think visibility leads to more clients, which leads to higher fees.
What we also think is that visibility is a great opportunity to show your expertise and step into this position where people are looking up to you and respecting you and seeing you in a way that maybe they haven't seen bookkeepers and accountants before. And that is also an opportunity to increase your fees. So does visibility positively correlate with fees? Does it really? we looked at some of the data in our survey. This is some of our community. So you saw on the slide earlier, Paula and Carly, and this is the rest. Well, this is just some of the group. These are contributors to our book, aren't they? And the bookkeepers and accountants in our community are from all the backgrounds. I mean, you can see mostly female, but people who've got different levels of experience. They've been in business for, maybe a few years. Maybe they're starting out and studying. Some people have been doing this for years and years. We've got some accountants, some bookkeepers, some who are new to practice, or they've worked in accountancy roles in different businesses in the past. Other people who've been in practice for a very long time. So we were really gathering views from a really big sample. And when we looked at the information that we had in the survey and started to sort of compare some of the measures that we had, we asked people, bear with us because we don't believe in the hourly rate, but we did say to people in that survey, if you had to charge an hourly rate, what would that hourly rate be? That is useful for us sometimes just to gauge, where are we? I think that we're all quite forward thinking in this room, and maybe we're starting to move away from the hourly rate if we haven't already done that, but it is quite a good measure for us to use. So the people everyone there was able to give us a reply to, if they had to charge an hourly rate, what would they charge? And then we compared that against how frequently people were posting on social media. And what we found was that generally the trend is, if you can see the pink, the more people were posting. So every day is on the far right and never is over here. As you're posting more frequently, as you're more visible, generally the hourly rate goes up. You're able to charge more.
So bookkeepers who are more visible charge more for bookkeeping services. That is what we kind of had an inkling that's what it was, but we like to see the data. So really, we've all got to start shouting about what it is we do, who we can help, how we can help them, and the benefits that business owners can have if they work with us. Because otherwise, how are they going to know?
Okay, if you look at the agenda for Accountex, maybe you've got the app. And there are lots of talks that you could go to over this couple of days. And maybe there are some that before you came, you were like, I really need to go to that one because that person's speaking and I know them and I've heard them before. Or maybe you haven't heard of them before, but their reputation tells you need to hear from that person. Maybe you walk into some talks and you've never seen people before. But generally, when you look around or when you look at your agenda, what you're going to find is that there are some well-known people in the industry. There are some well-known accountants and bookkeepers here who you will see pop up, not just at Accountex, but at the other events as well. And you'll see them online and on podcasts and on YouTube and all of those kind of things. Those names come up over and over again. What we forget about those people, or what we believe about those people, is that there's something special about them. They're out there all the time. They must be successful. They're doing this great job. And potentially they're charging more than we're charging. But what we forget is those people are just exactly the same as us. They're just some people who've strategically built visibility into their strategy. That's what they do.
And a lot of the time just said yes to some opportunities that have come up. I know that, I couldn't do a talk tomorrow. So I said to my sister, do you want to do it? And she was like, no, but she said yes, and she's going to be doing it. So it's the first time she's going to appear. So it's every one of them are just normal people that just said yes to something or put themselves forward for something. Maybe it starts off with an award or, going for things. They're all normal, just like us. But the perception we have is that they're definitely successful and that they're charging more.
And when we compare ourselves to people like that who are more visible, we think, I could never do that. And I think that because we have this vision of what these people are like, it makes it really hard for us to see, well, I could be visible too, because we're like, well, there are people already doing this, and there are people doing things that are allowing them to put their fees up that I actually can't do. So let's have a look outside of bookkeeping. Let's think about how this works in other industries. And actually, when we as a group here are prepared to pay more for things, because that's, we want to encourage our clients to pay more for what we do, see the value, see the worth. So when is it that things happen to us where we want to charge more? When would you charge more? Okay. Let me tell you about my garden. There's a really big tree in my garden. And when we moved into the house, I thought, at some point I'm going to have to, I am not tall enough to cut this tree. I don't have the equipment or the tools. I'm going to have to find someone who can deal with this, but it is not my priority. One day it will happen. But over the years and with the storms, if anyone remembers that massive storm, there was definitely a night where I thought, a big bit of this tree is going to fall off. I need someone to look after it. I really needed somebody to solve that problem for me, but I didn't really know how I was going to solve it. I don't really have a network of tree surgeons in my life or even gardening experts. So I was kind of waiting for an opportunity to come my way. A guy knocked at the door one day. I was doing something for the bookkeeping podcast, actually. And he knocked on the door and he was like, oh, you've got this big tree. I'm actually in the area working on someone else's garden right now. Would you like me to come and do it? And he quoted me a price. And completely unsolicited, quoted me a price. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I need to speak to my husband, and asked him to come back later. And in the meantime, he gave me a flyer. In the meantime, I went and Googled his company. And I had a look in the local Facebook group to look for the name to see if I could find out anything about him. And when he came back, I just thought, you know what? I don't know anything about you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your qualifications are. I can't find any information about who you are. I don't think this is like the right thing for me to do to make this decision on the whim. He actually then went on to heavily discount his offer for how much he could do. And that really was the end of that. So he went away. There's a lovely bookkeeper in our community who is married to a tree surgeon. And I remember having a conversation with her about this whole thing. And she was like, oh, my husband's a tree surgeon. He could, maybe he could do it. Turns out he lived quite far away. He quoted, but ultimately he was like, you could save a lot of money if you just found somebody locally who could do it. So it's like, great, back to square one. I need to start again. Then I was walking home from school with my kids one evening and saw a guy doing some stuff with trees, big ladders and things. And he looked like he was maybe working in the garden. And I went up to him and I said, is this your house? Or do you do this for a living? And it turned out that, yeah, this was his business and this was what he did. And it's like, could you please come to my house and just quote me for this tree? And he did. And he had a chat with my husband and he knew the area and he'd been local forever. And, they had all of that great rapport and started talking about all the other things he could do for us. And the reason that started was because he had credibility. That conversation started because he had been trusted by somebody else in my area. So I felt there was credibility there. Someone else trusted him. So actually, I wouldn't be completely stupid to trust this guy. Obviously, I needed to do my own research here. But it was that external tick in the box. That was the start of that conversation. So a neighbour trusted him. To me, that gave me that external tick of that credibility I needed to see.
So the next story we're going to tell you about is it's not my house. I know my nails match the colour, but I have not got a Barbie house. But I needed a mortgage. I was a bit like lackadaisical. It didn't need to happen very quickly, but I went back to the guy that I'd been using before and I said, can you help me out? But in the meantime, I've set up 2 new businesses. Dividends, you know what it's like, all different. And they was like, oh, I don't really think we can help you out. I was like, surely you can help me out. This is fine. He was like, no, I can't help you out. Someone else recommended me, and he said, no, I can't help you out. So I'm scrolling on TikTok one day, and this lady comes up, and she's talking to me, and she says, is this your issue? This. We can help you out. We're mortgage brokers. And I was like, really? On TikTok? Who gets a mortgage broker from TikTok? No, I'm not going to be that person. But anyway, I then followed her on Instagram. I then looked her up on her website. But what I really liked is that she was really nice. Like, I felt like she could be my friend. She was funny as well. And I was watching her content and it wasn't all about mortgages. And she actually made it fun. And I thought, I really like you. You could be my friend. And I think, actually, I'm going to reach out. I felt I could reach out and ask the question. I actually thought, I bet she won't be able to help me, even though she says she could. She got it all sorted. And not once in that whole time did I think, how much is this going to cost? I just needed the solution to the issue that I had. And I really liked her. So I didn't even ask. We were way down the line. She'd approved everything. And then I was like, oh, God, how much is this going to cost? And she told me. And I was like, oh, fine, whatever. So it's interesting that when you can approach someone, when they've got credibility and you can approach them and feel safe to do so, money doesn't seem so high on the agenda.
At the moment, we're having a new website built. And when we thought about who we were going to work with, in fact, I don't think I even consulted Jo on this. Sorry, Jo. We knew who we were going to go with. No question about it. The team that we've hired to build the website are a couple that I've known for a long time. I met them at a networking event 5 or 6 years ago. Husband and wife, really lovely, just really supportive, part of a network that I know really well. And I've been following them online. They do TikTok, they do cute little couples TikTok things where they're talking about websites, and I'll see them on Instagram, and they do lives and all the things. So I'm seeing them all over the place on social media. I've obviously seen their website. We've had them on the Bookkeepers podcast, and I feel like I see them regularly. They keep popping up. And when it came to having the website built, there really wasn't any question, should we get some quotes? It was just, well, they're the people. Of course, they're the people. We know them so well. And like you said, the money, it wasn't really, within reason, right? The money wasn't really an issue. It was just like, what, you're the people, just tell us what it's going to cost and we'll make a plan. So they were showing up repetitively. We saw them all the time, and that helped us to build that trust and confidence in them to know they were the people for us.
So last year, me and Zoe wrote the book, The Bookkeeper Rises, and we were laughing because I said, do you read books? And she was like, no, I listen to Audible. And I'm like, yeah, me too. So we better turn our book into the audio version. How do we do that? So we asked someone else that we knew that had created an audio book, and they were talking about egg boxes in the garage and downloading something called GarageBand and editing in the small hours of the morning. And I'm like, this is not our area of expertise. I want to find an expert that can do this for me. This sounds like hell. So Zoe did some research local to her and found a recording studio local to her. She went down there to meet Jordan and had a chat. But when she walked through into the studio, it was a proper studio. There was all the equipment there. And then she was asking him about, like, who have you worked with before? And he was talking about all of the Penguin books that he had recorded. Like, he came across to us as the expert, and he was really nice. And we were like, definitely, we need an expert here. We're going to use him.
So he'd worked with Penguin. That sealed the deal for us. He had absolute expertise. It was all like everything you could see in terms of the kit, the way he invested in making sure that he could deliver the best product. We could see examples of the work, the people he'd been working with. That really just sealed the deal. Again, it wasn't really a matter of the price. It was just a case of you're the only option here for us. So you want to be in this position too, as selling your services as a bookkeeper or accountant. You want to be in a position where you're in a sales call with your client, and they're just able to say, I just want you to do it. Just tell me how much it's going to cost. You want that to happen too. And we think that to get your clients into that position, you need to have demonstrated those 4 aspects. So you need to show that you have the credibility, so that third-party endorsement of what you do. You need to show that you're approachable. People can reach out and have a chat. I think that is a big challenge actually in this industry. I think people are quite afraid of bookkeeping and accounting, tax. They don't feel like it's an accessible area. So maybe they don't even know how to approach us. So we need to really break down the barrier for people to know they can reach out. We need to be repetitive. We have to keep showing up. If you posted once this month, it's not repetitive enough. I'm sorry. It's okay for you to say the same thing over and over and over again, because people won't see it. They won't see the one thing you've done. And you need to show people that you're an expert at what you do. And actually, the expert bit, it's really easy to do. You could just talk about anything you did today and you'll show people that you're an expert.
Like, to be the expert, you have to be like the expert in an average room. And you are definitely the expert in an average room about bookkeeping and accountancy. And we know that if clients understand our value, they'll pay more. So you need to start being more visible. Sorry, no, that's not what you wanted to hear. You wanted us to give you some data and facts and you write it down and not have to talk to anyone about it. But unfortunately, you do have to get out there for people to know how you can help them and how to work with you.
Let me tell you about a really visible person I know. She's called Jo Wood, and she's a bookkeeper, and she runs a practice called Jo Wood Virtual FD. She also runs the 6-Figure Bookkeeper with me, and we host the Bookkeepers podcast and do lots of things we've already told you about. Jo, I'm really sorry I stalked you online, and it was really fun, actually. I really had a really good time. And I had a look at what is Jo doing. And I'm just going to say, she doesn't do this every day. This is just the culmination of all of the things that she's sort of throwing out there. I like to think of like social media and the internet and the things you do to market yourself as this big web of things that just builds up over time. And this is what you'll see with what Jo's done. So Jo make sure that people see her as credible. She gets that third-party endorsement of who she is and what she does. And she does that by getting testimonials from her clients who are saying Jo has done a great job that she can then share on social media, on her website. But she also gets invited to Accountex and events like this where she can speak on stage and talk as an expert about what she does. So there are people saying, yeah, Jo is good at what she does. And I think that gives confidence to any potential client, even though her potential client won't be here at Accountex, but they see that she's doing that, and that shows that credibility. Jo also shows that she's approachable. This is Jo and her best friend dancing on TikTok. You will see lots of that. And Jo goes live in the Facebook group all the time, and she'll do lives in her kitchen at the weekend when she's cooking for her family. Sometimes she messes up the stream, and there's quite a funny gif where she might say a swear word. And she just shows she's a real person. Like, she's just there being herself, doing her thing. And I loved this, Jo. Jo did a really great YouTube video where she breaks down some of the things she sees on TV shows and interprets the sort of bookkeeping and accounting aspects. So she was talking about the write-off part in Schitt's Creek, if anyone ever saw that, and just giving her view of like, what does this actually mean? Because if you're not a bookkeeper or accountant and you ever saw that, you would not have seen how funny it was. And Jo's just being herself. She's talking about a show that she loves and showing people she's approachable. Jo shows up everywhere. So, you've got to say she's kind of repetitive. She's in all places. Sometimes she's using the same content across different platforms. So you might see something that she puts on Facebook, then on LinkedIn. She might talk about something that she's done here that she shared in her stories. She'll probably post about it on LinkedIn and say, this is what I've been doing. So she is repetitive and she's in all of the places. And she shows that she's an expert. I mean, she has the advantage that she can talk about bookkeeping through the Six Figure Bookkeeper and the Bookkeepers podcast and the book. But she's also posting things on her Instagram or posting on LinkedIn about her area of expertise and showing that she understands that and just kind of breaking it down for people so they can see, yeah, she knows what she's doing.
Thank you. So how can you get more visible? We have so many things and you don't have to do it all at once. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but let's go through some options. So video. My first video that I remember doing was for LinkedIn. I'd just been made redundant in April 2019. And, that house I was talking to you about, I needed to keep that roof over my head. And that was the driver I needed to create that first video. I was petrified. It took me 3 days to create a 3-minute video. So, but you have to get started. So video, you can use YouTube, you can use Facebook to go live or record something and then share it. Audio, we've got a podcast, but you can always, we often have bookkeepers come onto our podcast and then they can share it to their audiences. So think about, is there a podcast that you could go on and be a guest on? Maybe for, if you've got an ideal client or someone in that industry or local to you, maybe there's a local, I know I've got a Made in Kent. There's a podcast that, business owners are encouraged to go on. The written word, you can write blog posts for your website. You can always as well offer, I was sitting next to the editorial enterprise editor of the Times earlier on a panel, and I know that journalists are always looking for stories around things, but you've got to go out there, even if, start with your local newspaper and thing and find out how can I tell you about, something that's interesting and interesting for them that maybe are going to impact, especially anything that's coming out with like HMRC or, you can talk about these things. In person today, you can talk to people, you can go and talk to your suppliers, you can go and talk to and take a photo and then save that for later and share that. Today is, like Zoe said, is absolutely full. Take photos with friends if you meet somebody or have a conversation. And then just have conversations with people and see how you can help. We always say collaboration over competition. We can all help each other out so much with shared knowledge. Website. Now, I didn't have a website until in the last year. We have a website for Six Figure Bookkeeper, but for my actual practice, I didn't. I use kind of LinkedIn as kind of a live website. I'm not very technical. And as Zoe said, I'm not posting all the time, but there's still a presence there. And it's taken me a while, 3 years, 4 years to build that up. And yeah, social media. So like I said, I'm not in stories every single day, or I'm not posting every day. I don't even think I post a few times a week. I am like a few times a month person. But because I've done that over time, when Zoe searched for me, she could find me everywhere, which kind of builds that trust. When a client or a prospect of yours is having a look, they can find you.
Absolutely.
And you can't do it all in day one. So take away, so when you saw that picture of me being on all these different places, I didn't do that in April 19. I did that one video and then I didn't do anything for a while. But then I thought, right, I need to post it. And I did start off on LinkedIn and built some confidence there. But Facebook was the platform that I would go and look at things. So I felt more comfortable with the platform. So if you do actually, if you go and look at any content, where do you go? Are your clients hanging out there? And for me, I was lucky that I serve a lot of beauty salons and salon owners, and they were on Facebook. So I was able to start talking. But even being here today, letting people know I'm at Accountex makes them realize that you're in the accounting profession and things like that. So they might not understand exactly what it is, but you've got to build the story up over time. If you're studying and you pass an exam, if you get your Xero certification or anything, you do anything, take a photo and upload it and build that picture up over time. You don't have to do everything on day one.
Absolutely. Oh, but we love this. So do you remember that graph where we shared how frequently people were posting on social media, and then we compared it back to what their hourly rate was if they had to charge an hourly rate? What we actually found, and this really reinforces what Jo said about not actually posting every day, what we found was that the people who were able to charge the most were actually the people who were charging a few times and posting a few times a week. So we know it's a small sample, and maybe that we would get a different result in this room, but we know that trend goes up. You can charge more if you're more visible, but also you don't have to be doing this every day. It's just that build up over time. Consistency doesn't mean constantly. You don't have to be there all day long. You share the thing that's of value to the people that you need to show that you're valuable. But what we really love about this, and this isn't a training on how to be great at social media. Remember, we want to talk to you about how you can charge more if you're more visible. What we really love about this is that if you start to do it, if you start to show up more, if you start to talk about the value of what you do and show you're an expert and all of those things, it changes your mindset. It changes the way that you think about it. So one of the other questions that we asked in this survey, so we asked about the hourly rate, but we also asked, how well known do you think you are compared to other bookkeepers on a scale of 1 to 5? So 1 is, I don't think I'm very well known compared to the others. And 5 is, I think I'm really well known. And I know this is really subjective and people are going to interpret this question in the way that they want to interpret it. But what we found was the people who believe they are more visible are the people who were charging the most. And I think that's because they build that confidence. They see it. They're like, every time they're out there saying, hey, I'm an expert, I know my stuff, I'm credible, I've got a testimonial, all of that stuff. Every time they're doing it, as well as reinforcing it to their audience of potential clients and existing clients, they're also reinforcing it to themselves. They're telling themselves, yeah, I've got this. I know my stuff. I am valuable. And I think that changes how you think about what you do, and it helps you to feel more confident when you're in that sales call with somebody and you're like, oh, I wish I could just charge a little bit more. You believe more that you can because you've been reinforcing it for yourself all the time.
So how do you increase your rates and still find clients? I think lots of people would assume you raise your prices and then you'll have less clients. So really, it is being more visible. So you need to be credible. So get that third party tick in the box. How can you do that? Just think of all of these areas and think, what one thing could I do to do that? Be more approachable. But to be approachable, you need to be seen so that people can actually feel like you're approachable. You can't be approachable behind a computer screen and say, oh, I'm here, but no one knows that you're there. Be repetitive. But remember, consistency doesn't mean constantly. Try and aim to do 1 post a week. Start off 1 a month. Whatever it means for you, and you build it up slowly. Me and Zoe had the Bookkeepers podcast. We started in early January 2020. No one will ever see the first 5 episodes. We get asked all the time, where's 1 to 5? It starts at 6. You don't need to see that. It was bad, but we got started. And that's the main thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get started. And then you're all experts. Like we said earlier, you're here today. You are, taking a day out of the business because you know how valuable it is to you to come and hear people talk and do that personal development and learn about new software and everything. You're already top of the game. So let people know that you are an expert. And when you do all of those things, we believe you can get more clients and charge more for the work you do.
We'd love to take some questions. I'm Zoe. This is Jo. We're also going to be doing a book signing at 2:00, somewhere between theatres 6 and 7. So if you want to come and find out more about what we do, we'll be there. But let's take some questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. So when it comes to posting, it's the content as well, isn't it? And I don't know about others here, but I have a problem with the content. I've got no qualms in posting. I can post anything, but when it actually comes to the practice and it's the content that's going into the posts, how do you come up with that?
So think about who your client is. If you can really focus in on the person that needs to hear from you, if there's a particular service that you're really going for at the moment, like really pushing, or Jo and I always talk about having an ideal client, thinking about the kind of business that you would really love to serve, that you could really serve really well. When you know that, you can put yourself in their shoes and you can start thinking like, what are the problems for them? What's keeping them awake at night? What are they worrying about? Like, those things. If you can think about that, you can start sharing content which is going to remind them of those pain points because the way that accounting and bookkeeping is cyclical, it's quite easy to be like, oh yeah, I'll worry about that in a few weeks' time. But if you can keep reminding them this is a problem and we can sort it out together and keep being there, talking about those challenges, talking about how you solve those challenges, that shows your expertise, it shows your understanding, it builds that connection between you and the kind of client that you want to work with. So we could talk to you about this all day. But I would say, like, if you can think about a few key topics that kind of client needs to hear from, you can almost filter yourself. It helps you to sense check. Because, anything's a content opportunity, right? You could share anything, like what you had for lunch. But if you can come back to, are these the things that client needs to hear about? You can be like, yeah, I would share that, but I wouldn't share that thing. And it's just kind of helps you to filter yourself and be really focused on that. That fits into that category. I could share about that. Does that help?
Yeah, yes, it does. So you're kind of finding your niche before the content.
Yeah.
You need to know who you're talking to before you talk to them, because or else you're just like spreading it out and it might not be. But remember, it doesn't all have to be like VAT deadline reminders or anything like that. We like to mix it up. So yes, show you're an expert and talk about things around what your client needs technically, but also talk about things, one of my values is family. So I'll talk about like days out or things like that. People want to know the person behind, and that's what people think, oh, that's the approachability thing. If you've got a hobby, like if you like playing golf or something, like share that. It doesn't on LinkedIn as well. It's not, I mean, you do have the LinkedIn's not Facebook police, but I find that I can, I've got a different audience there, and actually people like to look at LinkedIn and actually find out more about people as well. So think of a couple of areas, maybe it's like software, maybe it's something to do, bookkeeping or cash flow or anything like that. And then maybe it's another value that's a bit more about you and become known for that. I know that there's lots of people here that like, swimming in the sea, and then I know ladies that like golfing, and you get recognized, and people like know what you're about. People want to know that. People want to know the person behind the business brand.
I was going to say, because I did get more interaction with personal posts than what I did with the actual business posts.
And if people like you and they are like, what's your name, sorry?
Mark.
If people feel like, I know Mark. Oh, look, it's Mark. Mark's doing that thing. But then they're like, oh, I need an accountant. Oh, Mark's an accountant. So it's just being front of mind. You don't have to be all the time like, hey, I'm available for discovery calls. You don't have to do that. It's just reminding them you're there. That repetitiveness. It's like the guys who are doing the website for us. We just see them all the time. And like, it is that just reminder all the time.
So maybe you need to add personality in there as well.
Yeah. There we go. That's the next one.
Thank you. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Okay.
No, I think we've answered everybody's questions.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.